So I thought the first trilogy of Red Rising was pretty good, pretty decent. Then we roll around to more books. Iron Gold, man, that's something.
Yeah, some people don't like it as much. I'm not some people.
And will you be too? I don't know. We're going to talk about it today. Hi there. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things we like to talk about. Today, science fiction. We're here to talk about Iron Gold, and this is a full spoil episode because we've both read it and haven't talked about the book yet. You get to see this fresh and live. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like the episode. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hope you will. Zach, we're only 30 away from 1,000 subscribers now.
Ah!
Yeah,
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool.
That's amazing. Like,
It's the final countdown. Okay.
That's insane to me.
Iron Gold. Wow. Yeah, total. Well, for one thing, I'm curious about here.
Mhm.
It does one of your least favorite things.
I thought we
There's
might start with this.
a time jump, but it was a logical and smart time jump.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are about the fact that there's a time jump here that makes it a time jump that not only was okay, but I actually probably liked. I thought it benefited the story. One, it's a relatively small time jump. Like, it's not like we're going 3,000 or 300 years in the future. We're going 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that far.
And we needed the things that happen over those 10 years to create the need for this story.
And that's the bigger thing. It's not that we're moving to new characters or new stories or anything like. No, it's just we're giving 10 years to allow for what happened at the end of the last book to truly develop into something more so that we can build upon that and really compound upon the issues that we knew were going to be there, but now we can see them actually taking effect and in action rather than see them in their baby little infant states.
Something I enjoyed about the start of this book is the realistic flair to it, in that, okay, we had the happy fairy tale ending at the end of the last one. Not quite, but everything worked out. Yay, they win. Haha. Now, 10 years later, it's the reality of trying to really bring this republic to life, really move forward and still dealing with flawed human beings.
Mhm.
And so things have not worked out. For one thing, the war is still not done. They knew at the end of the trilogy they hadn't got all the gold forces under control. There's still ones out there that aren't on their side. Well, 10 years of war, they've still been trying to do this and have failed to finish them off. This has been very difficult.
They've had some successes. I mean, it's not just like they took over Luna at the end of the last book and they were planning to go to Mars. It's like, no, that they have control more or less of Mars. They have control more or less of Earth. They've recently won a great victory, kind of control, maybe on Mercury.
Now, we'll talk about that more in a
Yeah,
second.
we get more about that one.
They have been in the position that was set up at the end of the last books, where they're in the core, in between the inner planets and the rim, where there are still powers of the gold. So you've got these contested combatants that they've been trying to deal with, and the rim lords, Darrow took care of their shipyards. They've not been a factor other than they're looming. They're out there, the moon lords. At some point, we're going to have to deal with that. But they were hoping to be able to wrap things up with the inners, and they couldn't. And so we are at a point, too, where two things have happened because of the inability to finish. One, the general population has gotten frustrated. I hate when those things start now, because
I
it
don't know
it
what
also
it
freezes the
is.
screen for a moment. It's
Yeah,
like,
it freezes you,
stop
but
it.
somehow it's like you have hand gestures that just make little bubbles of fun things sometimes.
It happens on Zoom as well. And there's a whole bunch of them. I mean, I can get fireworks if I do this. See? Look at that. But then I freeze for a moment. It's like,
Yep.
what the issues that have come up from the 10-year gap. And the one is obviously that it hasn't gotten done. So people are frustrated, and it's led to the rise of the Vox Populi. Okay, this political movement that really wants to just be done with war and really are trying to, there's a political agenda behind the Vox Populi. So they're painting the war, painting Darrow in a less positive light because it increases their authority. We say we should be done with war. We should settle for peace. We should find ways to just finish this because of, I mean, they have been throwing millions and millions of lives at this war. The numbers were astounding.
Mhm.
So there's that.
Now, to be fair to the Vox Populi, it's not like that's their only agenda ticket item. They're very much the voice of the people, as the name suggests. And so it's kind of the like working man's party political. It's like, hey, no, we shouldn't just let our republic be the kind of aristocracy, the oligarchs, because if that's the case, we didn't really change. But it's started to almost become swung a different way. Power can corrupt
Yeah.
regardless of who has it.
But this also led to Darrow's frustration and lack of patience. He is tired of war as well. He wants to be done. And as we come into the story, it's where he saw a shot to finish the war by doing an iron rain down on the Mercury. And the Senate said, no, that's not a good idea. Don't do it. His wife, who is still the reigning sovereign, Mustang, Virginia, she's like, we have rules here. They said don't do it, so don't do it. And he says, screw you, and does it anyways because he knows he's right.
And,
Mm.
well, it works. It also costs a lot of lives.
And does it work?
It doesn't break the war. It
There are
does
things
when
going
Mercury
on that
kind
he's
of.
not aware of, though, and that's part of what makes these books necessary.
And there are things going on that he is aware of, but he makes mistakes, including, yeah, no, they definitely did have a messenger who was like suing for peace, but it was totally a ploy, and he saw right through it. Yeah, but the Vox Populi, when they hear about that, they're like, but we want to talk to that, and you don't get to throw away lives just because you go, no, it's not your decision.
Darrow has the mindset that we're still at war. Let me win the war for you. Let me do it. That's my role. And he's getting frustrated that the political scene has changed enough that they want to have a say about it. But at a time of war, they can easily be misled. That's what Darrow believes. And to be honest, he's right. But is it still right to just disregard the legal system? Well, no. I mean, the whole thing ends up being messed up.
Darrow very well, at least in this book, fits into that role of kind of the military leader who it's like they absolutely should probably be allowed to be a dictator in a time of war. But they also should then, after the war's over, be put on trial for war crimes and never let out of prison.
Mm.
Like his own government probably should turn on him once they're in peace, but they're not in peace. And so the government turning on him now before they're in peace is a problem.
So, speaking of turning on him, since he went and did what he wanted and conquers Mercury, he comes back to a hero's welcome that's very short lived because the politics turn very fast. And now he's going to be arrested for defying the Senate, for basically war crimes. He is a loose cannon, and we are going to clamp down here. And he decides that would be a mistake.
He continues to make gray calls because they're like, they're wrong, but they also are kind of maybe necessary, definitely from how he views it, and they lead to good things sometimes.
Well, this leads to a very bad thing.
Yeah.
And let's touch on two teeny bits here. We have an introduction of a key character in this book that we met right at the end of the last book.
Yeah.
Pax, the son. And Pax is a neglected young man who partly understands it and partly is starting to resent it.
His dad's always away at war.
And he loves his dad. He thinks the world of his dad. In some ways, he'd like to be his dad. But his dad's never there for him. And, he's starting to feel it. There's a friction between the two of them.
And it's really fun and interesting to see the difference between Pax, Darrow and Virginia's kid, and then Severo and Victra's kids. Because One, they're very different, but they also reflect who their parents are, how they've been raised, and what kind of fuels them. You can see it in the kids. It's great. But it also very, very quickly, you get a feel for what the difference in relationship between these people and their parents are. The relationships with their fathers, very different. And points to Severo here. He's an awesome dad,
Well,
even
and
with not being there.
he had that experience growing up of never having his dad around to the degree he wanted because Fitchner is off starting a civil war. He's trying a rebellion. He's doing this, and he couldn't be there for his son. And Severo's like, I'm not going to make that mistake. Not that he felt his dad failed him in any way. He just wants to be different for his kid. So he's made that commitment.
That
He's
anytime
there.
he's there, he's very present. He tries to be there when he can. He's very engaged, loving, playful with his kids. And Darrow has to keep a certain level of like Darrow the leader, Darrow the composed. And it's almost like he's keeping his own son at arm's length a lot of the time.
We see a touching scene there over the racing bike
Hmm.
that his son has made and made a key for his dad. And it's like, oh, there is love there. There is respect and care. It's just there's not enough time. It's sad. But Darrow continues to be driven by what his compelling creation story is. His life is not his own. Still,
Hmm.
he's here for a cause, and the cause isn't over. But that's what pushes his final actions here that start a chain reaction of things here. He's close to being finishing. He believes it's within grasp, and the Senate is going to botch this all, and he can't stand for that. So there's no way he's going to let them put him in jail or even house arrest. Forget it. I'm taking off on a harebrained scheme because I'm Darrow, the Reaper of Mars, and I can get this done with just one last move.
And in a lot of ways, Darrow, he's just as sick of fighting and war as people in
Mhm.
the Senate. Now, in the thick of it, and when he really thinks about it, he also knows he loves it. He loves the war, he loves the violence. And that's hard to wrestle with sometimes. But when it really comes down to it, he doesn't want this anymore. He and Virginia have a nice conversation about, like, wouldn't it be nice? I retire, you retire as sovereign. We just, like, get to be us.
Yep.
And then they have to concede, when it's done.
They're
And
civil
it
servants. They
probably
still
never
have to do what's
will
needed.
be. Darrow feels like his life isn't his, like he's has to live for something else. And to a certain extent, he resents that. He especially resents the idea of just suing for peace or not finishing the war because it throws away all that he gave to it.
Yeah. So after he's just spent his time with his son and he has a conversation with his wife, and she's seen right through it. She knows he's about to try to take off on a harebrained mission. She knows her husband, and she also is a civil servant. So she has arranged to have him stopped. She has to. Anything else would be the wrong move as the sovereign. She understands as the wife, but she is the sovereign. And so it's a trap, basically, here to stop him. And here come obsidians and I think some grays. And the head obsidian guy in charge here, I forget his name,
I do as well.
but
I want to say it started with like a W.
he's like the top guy. He's the next Ragnar, basically. He's what everyone looks up to. And he's someone who has fought alongside over the years, fought alongside Darrow,
He
was
and
right there
Darrow
at
are
Ragnar's
friends.
side. And he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he comes with a contingent to take Darrow into custody. He's ready for the fact Darrow may not go along willingly, but he's got a whole bunch of non-lethal measures to stop Darrow. Darrow is not an easy guy to stop. So this goes badly. But the worst part is Darrow is trying to do everything he can to get away without killing anybody. Just he's doing damage. He
Hmm.
has to. The cause
He'll cut
deserves
some
it.
tendons,
But these
hurt some
people are
people,
just
but
working under orders, and he knows they're good people.
yeah,
So he's not trying to hurt, permanently hurt someone.
he does it anyway.
It's complicated because basically he's failing. He's going to get caught, and then Severo, who was also here because they had come to just say goodbye to their kids, basically. And Severo got away from the trap set for him and comes to get Darrow out of it. And it's something Severo does that shifts. I think it's the Obsidian's body that shifts just a little. So when Darrow tries to stab him through the shoulder, he ends up like stabbing him through the neck or
It's
something. I
definitely
mean,
a
it's
through
a
the neck.
fatal wound. And
It's
that was
also something that, like, I don't really blame Severo.
no, it's just a bad, terrible accident, honestly. But it can happen when you're using deadly weapons.
Exactly. You can only say it's an accident so far. Like, it's not an accident to harm or maim him. It's an accident that he dies.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're going after someone with deadly force theoretically, and they end up dying, and you're like, it was an accident. It's like, yeah, you didn't mean to kill him, but it wasn't an accident.
But no, it's an accident. And it's a horrible mistake that happens then. Darrow would take it back in a heartbeat if he could.
Yeah, he can't.
He can't. But now they're gone. So, all right, they leave. Now they're on the lam. The authorities will take them in, so they have to stay in hiding now. They are officially in rebellion against the rebellion.
They go dark, and they go a little dark.
So, who are we talking about with they? We've got Darrow and Severo and other howlers.
Couple other howlers. One of the most notable is actually a Telemanus.
Thraxa.
hmm
I have trouble picturing Thraxa a little bit. I think she's just beast mode of a woman. I think, if I'm picturing it right, she's just massive, hulking.
I have like a couple of video game character comps actually, but it's very much like this large hulking kind of Amazonian vibe.
I'm thinking
Um,
more Samoan than Amazonian. You know,
I have
that
a
that
hard
traditional body.
problem picturing Samoan when being as like purebred gold as the Telemanus kind of is. It's like you're Aryan, you're blonde hair, practically blue eyed. I know it's not, but it's like that doesn't really mix with the Samoan thing. Maybe more like the boxer from Rocky 3.
I will break you. Yeah. So she's along. I don't remember exactly where they pick up some others here. Are they with them from the beginning?
It's kind of
He's
like
got
at Mars, there's a split of like, I don't want to ask you all to come with me, and I can't because I don't want to start a civil war. But if some of you are willing to come, and a lot of people do, one notable who does not, who knows what's going on, kind of, and says, no, I can't do this. I can't follow you here, is Holiday.
Okay. Yeah.
It becomes important that she said no.
Now they are going to meet up, and I get a little cloudy in some of this.
They meet up with,
Looking at my
what's
notes.
his name? The pilot, who's like Orion's student, like the next down the trained. I think his name
Oh
starts with
man,
an
I can't
H.
remember that one's name at the moment.
I think it starts with an H. It's been a little while since I've read these books at this point.
H doesn't
Um,
sound right, but okay. Well, anyways, let's get back to the main story here. What we're doing now is we're gonna do a prison break. That's the plan.
that's
Okay.
a dumb plan. Like, I get why it's their plan. Don't release the monsters.
The core idea Darrow has, if we're gonna end this war, is we're gonna do a massive gamble. We're gonna go kill the Ash Lord. He's the one who has offered this olive branch that Darrow knows is just deception, is just a stall technique, is just totally not genuine. And the Senate is falling for it. So we're going to remove the Ash Lord from the board, and the war's over. The rest of the resistance will crumble. Now, is that really accurate? Probably not. But that's what Darrow, who's done and tired of this, is fixated on, right?
Everything about this feels like a desperate gamble of, it's felt like it's been me versus the Ash Lord for 10 years. I need to just take him out and it'll be done. It's like, it's probably not true. And if it doesn't work, then you've burned every bridge to do something that didn't work. And throughout this book, we see Severo time and time again looking at Darrow, be like, if this doesn't work, I'm done. I'm done with this shit. I want to go be a dad.
And Darrow didn't make Severo come with on this, but
No.
Severo's like, I've been with you all the way. this one last gig, man. I get what you're trying. I think it's insane, but I'm with you to the end. But this is the end. Yeah, this is it. We're gonna do it, and then I'm out. Absolutely.
And between the Iron Rain on Mercury, and now this scheme here, and the decade of things that they've done together, there is an intense, strong bond there, and there's a very strained relationship. And Severo, whose whole gig is loyalty, is basically on his last straw with Darrow.
He's just not willing to pay the price anymore. He wants
And
to be there for his family.
he shouldn't have to be.
I have thoughts on that, but I'm going to save that for the next book.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's fair.
So they go on this mission to Deep Grave. Is that what it's
I
called?
think it's Deep Grave Prison. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a deep under.
It's a subterranean prison, or
Subaquan.
wrong word. Submarine. That's the wrong word. What do you call it when it's underwater?
Submerged.
That could be the right word. It's
No,
deep
it's like
under the ocean.
It's like a little prison in the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
It's like if you manage to break out, there's nowhere to go. You're going to
Notably,
drown.
this
Actually,
is-
you're going to die from the pressure.
This is under the ocean on Earth.
Yeah. So we get action on Earth. They go in. This is, a fairly impregnable prison that they will find a way to break into anyway, because it's Darrow, and that's what he does. And they get in there, and their purpose is to break out one of the worst war criminals of the war that they did manage to capture before, Apollonius.
Valia Wrath, something like that. It's Titus from way back, his big brother, like biggest brother.
Yeah, the one who picked on Titus, the one who broke Titus's violin back in the day when we learned way back.
And like Titus had two older brothers that we knew about, and both we knew were bad. It was like Titus is awful, but he's like the best of the three, and he has a chance for hope. Now we're seeing biggest brother. Yeah, no, he's been one of the biggest rivals that Darrow faced in this last decade. He's known as the Minotaur of Mars. He's a little insane, but he's also incredibly deadly.
We get tiniest background because we didn't see this. This happened, like, say, off screen over the past 10 years, but he's in prison because he got betrayed by his own people, because in essence he was getting too powerful and they turned on him, because that's what golds do. Yeah.
Now, they didn't turn on him like they captured him themselves and turned him over as a prisoner. No, it was more they like sent him off on a mission and then pulled every reinforcement out. So he had no viable chance.
Expecting he would fall in battle. Fortunately, he didn't fall in battle. He got captured in battle. Everyone else pretty much fell. But he ends up, there you go, life sentence, Deep Grave. Why life sentence? Well, Virginia, after the death of her brother, that was the final execution, she's banned the death penalty. Nobody gets killed anymore unless they fall in battle.
They just live to death.
Right. So he's here. This dude should have been killed. He should have been executed. But since he wasn't, now he's, an opportunity.
And he's an opportunist.
And who turned on him? Well, the forces that he was fighting alongside, and the leader of those forces is the Ash Lord. So they're going to break him out to try to convince him to work with them to take down the Ash Lord, thereby getting his own vengeance. And then they'll worry about what happens afterwards.
It's not a terrible plan as far as going in and just killing the Ash Lord. Now, suing for peace, winning the war, no, that's a terrible plan for winning the war.
You're right, though. This guy's a psycho. I mean, when they get there, it's like a stereotypical crime kingpin in prison.
Yeah, he's taken over, basically. He now
He's
has
sitting there.
The mess hall is
He's got his personal
room
exercises.
now.
He's got his pinks to enjoy. He's eating filet mignon. I mean, it's everything you'd want with some classical music in the background.
I don't think it's even in the background. I think he's playing the violin.
Sorry, when they first come upon him. He is a specimen still. He's clearly been using the time to get himself in the absolute peak shape. This is not a guy who's been wasting away suffering in prison.
And he was supposed to be. They go to his original cell first and find an obsidian without a tongue.
Yeah, that's an interesting guy.
There's still unresolved don't know everything there.
Yeah, they call him what is did he gave him a
I
name
think
based
several
on
calls him tongueless.
I don't think that's what they stuck with, was it? But it was something based on the fact they found him without a tongue. Maybe it was tongueless. I don't remember. But that was a strange sort of situation. They do break him out, uh, partly by threatening the warden, who'd already
Yeah,
been bought off.
it is tongueless.
It is tongueless, okay, who'd been bought off by Apollonius. So, they threaten him, and then long story short, they get him out. And let's do this thing. Now they're going to go to the Ash Lord. They head out to where the Ash Lord is. They do a whole complicated thing to get past his guards, his awards, the various things that are in the way to protect the Ash Lord. They succeed in getting right to where he is and find him a decrepit old man in bed near death. He's not been running the war. It's like, surprise!
Yeah, apparently he's been on death's door like this for like a couple of years. Turns out Apollonius even kind of knew this was probably the case because he kind of did this from afar.
Yeah, he poisoned him. He
He
poisoned
was
him.
like, well, I didn't know if it worked or not.
And it turns out that his daughter Atalanta is the one who's been running the war and has just allowed it to still appear. She's like preserve the image of the Ash Lord in charge, but no, she's in charge. And the Ash Lord is still knowledgeable, still sharp mentally, fully aware that Atalanta has run with it. Is it Atalanta or Atalantia?
Atalantia.
It is Atalantia. As I'm saying it, it was sounding wrong. So Atalantia is the one that's running it, and they're actually using this as deception. And then we get the big deception. But before we can talk about this big deception, we have to back way up.
Let's talk about the fact that the first 3 books were all from Darrow's POV. Everything we've talked about so far has been from Darrow's POV. This book brings in other POVs.
Yes, that's why we've got to back way up and talk about these new characters that get introduced. Let's start with Lyria of Lycos.
No.
Lyria
of Lagalos.
Yes.
One of the other mines.
We get to see another cost of the 10 years of this war, and that the Republic has not been able to fulfill its promises of a better life for all the people. And things that it has tried to do with the best intentions have fallen short due to a lack of resources and lack of time caused by the war.
And so ultimately, after the Rat War, these dirty tunnel fights on Mars to kind of free Mars and the mines, a lot of Reds are liberated from the mines. They're like, you don't have to do this anymore. And many of them were like, there's other ways of life. They didn't know still throughout that fight. And we finally get to a point where they're not working the mines necessarily. Some of them choose to go back. Most Reds were kind of given certain ownership and then sold it to Quicksilver at a bad deal because they didn't understand that part of the economics. Of them. And it's like, it's a fair deal because they chose to enter into it, but it's unfair because they didn't know what was going on enough.
Right.
And so they're left now in a lot of these like almost refugee camps kind of things because they don't have a place to really be or things to do or resources beyond being not in the mines.
They're left sucking on the tit of the Republic, and it's going dry.
Especially because the Republic doesn't have that many resources to give while they're still throwing all of their resources into this war effort.
Yeah. So these camps that they are in, they've been provided for them, but they have bare subsistence living. It's not a happy place. And then you throw in the Red Hand. Because Harmony is still out there wreaking havoc as the true rebellion.
And Harmony and the Red Hand have their hate of the High Colors and all that's still there. But they've also slightly changed their agenda. And they've gone, well, we've got these abandoned refugee camps of Reds around. And while we were in the mines and Red was there, we were all in our different clans, and there was one clan that was always put as the clan above, and Harmony's diving right back into the mentality that was kind of like given to them by the Golds to hate each other, to focus the fight on each other, and it's just like death to all Gammas.
So we see in this opening scene, first, a clear painting of how it's not all wonderful and rosy for Reds. And then that gets worse when the Red Hand comes and wipes out the village. So poor Lyria has nearly her entire family killed right there in front of her. The only one who survives besides her is her nephew Liam, who's blind.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one.
Love
And
Liam.
and then Lyria, we get to see actually a moment of moxie. She's gonna get off planet and have a chance to change her life completely, because she did something just before this all went down and showed her quality. And that's this whole issue with Kavix.
And Kavix basically had what roughly happened way back in Golden Sun to Darrow and crew, where he's in this big star shell and it goes inert and he falls into the water and mud. He's probably gonna drown. And so Lyria goes and gets other people enough to help to kind of drag him out so that he's not dead, saves his life, and then makes a bold choice later on to kind of demand, take me and Liam with you.
Well, Kavix had made a point of seeking her out after this whole horrible thing had happened with the Red Hand, but then finally Republic forces did show up to stop them, but it was too late for most, But he comes and finds her, and he makes a promise. If you ever need anything, I have a blood debt to you, basically, now. If you ever need anything, just let me know. I will do all within my power. And being all, Telemanus proper and big and his old way, well, she, jumps on that then and runs to him and basically says, take me with you. Don't leave me in this horrible place. And his family with him is like, we can't take you. Because apparently, this is a tie into modern times. Doesn't matter that you're in a sucky circumstance. We have immigration laws. You can't come. We'd love to, but we can't do that. And then Kavix finds a way around it. He says, well, I'll just hire her. She'll be part of my household. You can be an undocumented worker. Come join me. We'll work it out later. The others aren't particularly thrilled, but there's this fun thing here, and we get this clear now in this story, and I loved this reveal because this had maybe been slightly hinted at in the trilogy, but it's fully illuminated here. Kavik plays off as being somewhat cuckoo, and it's all sham.
It's an act. He's not.
It's all sham. Again, it was inferred in the trilogy in one spot, but it's emphasized here. It's like, no, I can get away with a whole bunch of crap if I do this.
Yeah, Sophocles the fox with the jelly beans and always these portents and being all superstitious. It's like, no, I'm playing off as a ridiculous old man, and people are humoring me.
He uses that ploy to get her to come with. Yeah,
jelly beans.
And we don't want to disappoint Kavix,
And then we quickly learn, it's not like super quickly, and it's not super important, but we quickly learn that Sophocles is not Sophocles the First.
It's like Sophocles the 507th or
They've been cloning this fox for generations.
Yeah. Wow. So it is the same Sophocles, sort of. Anyways, Lyria now enters into the service of the Telemanuses, and she is taken to Lune with them. That's where they go, right?
Luna? The moon?
Luna. Yeah. I believe that's where they go, and the main action then happens. Because this is where then she's going to have an encounter with another character we had learned about in the trilogy, but now we're going to get firsthand encounters with.
We'd only heard like in passing, like we talked about.
Yep. But when he's introduced here, I'm like, oh, that guy. Yeah, cool.
It's very quick that we know exactly who that is. Ephraim T. Horn. This is beloved Trip, who we knew for all of a couple of chapters and then died. Holidays.
Trig and Holiday that broke Darrow out at the beginning of book 3.
Yes, Morning Star.
Yeah.
And
dies in the attempt. We knew Trig had a husband somewhere.
a fiance, technically.
Were they not married?
I don't believe so. It was like just by circumstance of basically the rising happening, and so there was a certain split of having duties and stuff that they had to go certain separate ways. They were all but married, and then things happened because of that, and so it's effectively like a widower. But
Yeah.
technically speaking, I don't think they were ever legally married or anything.
Ephraim's been in a dark place. He originally, in response to Trig's death, joined the rebellion. And fine, I will, work for the cause that my life partner was doing. But then eventually gets disenchanted with that. Again, maybe because of the length of time things go on and he gets tired of seeing people die. We learn Ephraim was really good at what he did, but he gets frustrated with the directions of things and he ends up going off his own directions. So when we meet him here now, he's a freelancer. He's just a gun for hire. He'll do whatever needs to be done for whoever is willing to pay high enough. That's the Ephraim that we get to meet.
Well, and let's go like a couple of steps back on that, because he did his time with kind of the Rising a little bit. He was a freelance gold hunter, kind of. He was a Grey who hunted down golds for the Republic.
Yep.
And he got disenfranchised enough that he left. And he's a freelancer, but he's not just like a freelance anything.
He said disenfranchised. You meant disenchanted.
Yeah, that too.
I've made the same mistake sometimes, so I just want to catch that.
No, he's mostly a thief.
He's good at that too.
That's mostly what he freelances. Like, he's not taking out hit contracts.
Right. Now, he has a crew, a gang that works with him. Most notably in that gang is Volga. Mm-hmm. Volga is an obsidian, a she obsidian, and we've met she obsidians before, the Valkyries, for example. She's not a Valkyrie.
No, but she's still a badass.
She's definitely a badass, but she seems a very kind soul at the same time.
Animals.
And there is some background between the two of them. They've been together a long time. But Ephraim has this crew around him and yet likes to distance himself from everybody. So Volga is the one, want to be there for you. And at the same time, he doesn't want that. Give me my space. He's an interesting and odd
let
character.
me be miserable and go get drunk, remembering my dead, not quite husband.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, no.
Now, things get complicated in here because Ephraim gets hired for a job. Mm-hmm. And here we need to talk a little bit about the Syndicate. Yeah. Tell us about the Syndicate, Zach. What do you think of the Syndicate?
In any large enough society where there are cracks, ants will fill those cracks. And eventually you put enough ants together, that colony becomes something a little terrifying, often with power and enough to break the sidewalk. In this case, the ants that are breaking the sidewalk of our new republic is the Syndicate, this kind of like crime organization that has risen up to take over all the little crime organizations and just kind of become the big bad mob.
Now, there was a Syndicate before, too, under the old regime. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty much crushed, wiped out, but it comes back.
Yeah. And it's like, is it the same thing? Probably not. But is it using that name and reputation? Absolutely.
This is not a full summary episode. We don't need to go into all details and stuff, but Ephraim has been working for the Syndicate, taking jobs, and he is going to end up on another job. And this gets complex, but what he's going to end up doing is kidnapping this time. He's going to end up involved in the kidnapping. And Lyria gets sucked up in it too. Ephraim apparently can be a master of disguise as well.
Especially when you don't know what he looks like.
Right. He befriends Lyria because Lyria is working for the Telemonases. She doesn't know he's Ephraim. He's this working nasty kidnapper, thief, whatever. He's just a kind man who
The
steps
only
in to
kind
save
face in
her
the
on a
city.
scam that she was set up in from the beginning. And so she's lonely, she's sad. He takes full advantage of that. And it's all to get to a point where he plants a bomb, an EMP. What was
Kind
it?
of like, I think it's like an EMP and gas situation thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a
On,
paralyzing gas.
on a necklace that she's wearing, basically. It's just a gift that he gave her. So that when the Telemanus crew, along with these children he's supposed to kidnap, are flying away on a shuttle, this thing goes off and the shuttle goes down. And then Ephraim and his crew show up and kill everybody who isn't alive or isn't dead or try to. Cavix is one of those. And he doesn't quite
Well,
kill him, but nearly does.
it's notable they're not killing like most of them. Uh, they are supposed to kill Lyria because she knows their faces, and Ephraim can't do it.
Ephraim feels a little bad at the end there. It's like, no, it's not
So he's
her
like,
fault,
"No,
really.
I'll take her too."
But of course, when he does that, he's like, it would probably be better if I killed her because they're all going to assume she was in on this.
The reason that Cavix almost gets killed is because he's big and the knockout gas is wearing off.
True. So, okay, they have taken who? Who did they kidnap? This is the classic thing that adds such a layer to this and why we had to jump back and talk about this at this point. They just kidnapped.
Pax. Not just Pax, but Pax was the main target.
But who was the other one that they primarily kidnapped?
I've avoided saying her name all episode because it's not in my brain right now.
Electra.
Thank you.
Pax and Electra. So Electra is the daughter of Severo and Victra. So these two prime kids that, I haven't finished the series. Series isn't done yet, but these two are supposed to get married someday. I mean, that's kind of how it all gets set up.
What?
They're like friends.
No.
They're like
They're just
raised, growing up
friends.
together. They like have they have a bond. Okay, they could just be friends, but they seem a little like Ron and Hermione to me. Okay, that's what I'm seeing here.
I'm seeing a Mustang and Victra or Darrow and Severo. Like they're emulating their
Okay.
parents in their relationship.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, they get kidnapped. Now, these kids are like both about 10 years old. Off they go and they're going to be turned over to the syndicate. And Ephraim feels bad about this, but a job's a job and you got to do the job. Why is this being done? Well, this is actually all part of a grand scheme going back to the Ash Lord and Atalantia. That while we've had you, Darrow, running off on this various schemes and thinking you're accomplishing stuff, we've had your kids kidnapped. Oh, and Atalantia, while you have been now in rebellion, she's taken our fleet to Mercury, where you've left a whole bunch of army people, and we're going to take them out.
They're roughly stranded.
Yeah, this is, and that's partly due to the Senate, too, that they've been left stranded.
But they got pulled back.
Unprotected. Everything's going to fall apart here is what we're getting to as we get to the end of this book. Yes, they find the Ash Lord. He's not the one really in charge anymore, but he knows stuff. He shares the stuff, and that really ticks them off, and they freaking burn him alive.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Roughly, the Republic is running out of steam and wanting this all to be done, and the remnants of the society are just getting started. They are ready to keep planning 10, 20 years further out if they need to, but they don't think they're going to need to because they've planned this far to get all these different pieces to line up to crush the Republic.
Yeah. A few key pieces to finish this stuff up. We haven't talked at all about Lysander. That's the other character that gets introduced here.
Yep.
Take us into Lysander a little bit.
So
What's he done the last 10 years?
Yeah, we last saw him handing over basically the sovereign position to Mustang. He's now 10 years older, an adult more or less, and has been traveling through space with our good pal,
Cassius Bologna.
Yeah, they're just like hanging out, being chill, being not
Trying to do
Republic
good.
or society. But Cassius is trying to kind of redeem himself in his own eyes, doing
Mm-hmm.
good where he can, how he believes it should be done. He has his own code of honor, and he thought it was with the society until he was pretty sure it wasn't. And so he helped Darrow and the Republic, but he's like, I can't throw my lot fully with the Republic because that just is betraying the society. And I believed in that for so long. I don't know where I really stand, but I know I can still be honorable, so I'm going to go do that. There are problems out there. I'm going to try and stay out of all of the things and just help where I can, be my own little vigilante. And I'm going to teach Lysander to be good. And it's like I'm going to be his older brother for his next formative years, and he'll be good. And he almost kind of sort of works, but also it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. We get okay. I just want to say this. I don't like Lysander. Lysander, he's the Gawain of the series now for me. I do not
I
like him.
love and hate Lysander because Lysander has all these opportunities to be good, to show what Cassius has been
Well, and he
telling him
believes he
to.
is being good, but our definition of good has aligned with the rebellion as readers.
Well, and there's
He's
a
not.
certain element of what he believes is good and stable for the whole of like the universe, the galaxy, the solar system, whatever you want to call it, whatever parts of this we're touching here. Um, and he does believe in like the original viewpoint of gold in the society. And while he does believe, yeah, the society's lost its way, he's like, and I can fix it, bringing it back to where it started, where it should be. And he's far too much his grandmother's scion.
And we're going to learn more and more how true that is, but not too much yet in this book. That comes up more in the next book.
Yeah, we're nowhere near the point where I said horrible things about Lysander in one of my book blasts.
But
But
those
it
are coming.
starts here where it's like I want every turn I want something good out of it. I like
He
Lysander as
does
a
some really good things
character.
in this book. He does.
I really do like Lysander as a character, but partially because I hate him.
Yeah, yeah. So, in short, we have a situation where Cassius and Lysander rescue a gold, break her out of a bad situation, and with her end up out on an asteroid. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but
A lot of stuff, and that's fine.
end up on an asteroid where the Moon Lords are. And this turns out to be Serafina Aura.
Who we
So
met.
the daughter, yeah, we met as a cute little girl. Now she's all grown up. She's the daughter of Romulus Aura. And she was in violation of the pact between Darrow and Romulus by having gone in to these inner areas. That's how she got caught, and they break her out of there. And there's a whole bunch of complex politics and stuff that goes on here, but the Cassius and Lysander are trying to keep their true identities hidden, and that falls apart in the midst of Romulus and all. And so it comes to be known who Cassius is, who Lysander really is eventually, and some politics takes over, and Romulus's wife basically throws a coup.
Yeah.
Because it comes to her attention, her belief that Darrow had misrepresented what happened back in the days when the Ganymede shipyards were destroyed. And now they have proof. And even better, it comes to be known that Romulus knew about this proof before anyone else and hid it from them all. Why did Romulus hide the truth?
Yeah, eventually, Romulus owns up to it. And he says, yes, because we need it. We don't want war. We want to be separate and peace. And this was our opportunity. And if this comes out, we need to go to war because this is a wrong that needs to be righted.
Right. They are driven by honor. So their honor will demand they go to war, and he doesn't want to see that happen to them.
He's like, it is better that he singularly makes a dishonorable decision to hide it from his people
for the good of the people.
Then his people know, and they have to go to war, and a lot of people are going to die.
When he fesses up to this, in the eyes of all of them, that ends up being treason, and therefore there's one punishment for treason.
You go, you go take a walk in the inhospitable climate that will kill you.
And that's exactly what Romulus does.
He does it with
Romulus
head
is
held
executed.
high.
Yeah,
He does that. There's a whole trial by combat kind of situation where Cassius shows he's no scrub. He's still pretty great, except he's also in a bad condition. And at the end of this book, we're told he's dead and people have
yep.
run off with his body.
He killed a whole bunch of them before they took him down, though.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
The
that
Moon
was a heck of
Lords,
a scene.
we're shown that the Moon Lords are impressive. Cassius is better than most of them. And one of the only ones who maybe is better doesn't fight.
Refused to fight. Yeah. If Cassius had gone against that one right off the bat, it might have been a heck of a battle.
Yeah. Cassius v. Diomedes, wild.
But that battle never has a chance to happen. Instead, he goes against all the scrubs and he takes them out one after another after another. I believe it's Seraphina that finally takes him out.
Probably.
The one he'd helped save, although that was more Lysander's idea in the first place. Yeah, so Cassius, he's done. Lysander is told he's dead, and his body was stolen.
But Lysander has kind of united them under the call of, hey, I'm a loon again. Let's go make a deal with the remains of the society. We can probably work out your peace and stuff, but let's go crush that republic. Get your revenge, get our revenge. Let's make it all work.
Right. So we have all these things coming into play now, which is setting up our next book, Dark Age, where things don't necessarily get better. But a piece that I have to come back to then is Ephraim T. Horn had managed to, kidnap those kids, but Ephraim gets caught. Okay, the kids are gone. He's delivered the kids, but then he gets caught by Republic forces.
Well, and he gets caught partially because Lyria gets away, and then Lyria talks to people. Huge suspicion there, but Holiday goes, "Oh no, that's Ephraim."
Yeah. So she manages to talk to the right people and is believed. And the right people includes Virginia, the sovereign. Lyria doesn't have a lot of love for the leadership of the Republic, but when she actually gets to look Virginia in the eyes, she sees something there that, this person actually does care.
Yeah, she learns and gains a little bit of respect because it's like it's not all a lie. She does care and she is trying, but there really is only so much she can do, and that hurts and is hard to see as someone who has suffered because of it.
So, because of her information, they do capture Ephraim. Ephraim then is given a challenge, a task, an opportunity. Go steal the kids back. If you do, then we'll figure out what we're going to do with you, but it will be better for you. We'll put it that way at this point. So you have a chance to improve what's going to happen. Go steal them back. And he does. He steals them back. Unfortunately, it doesn't go as well as one might hope. Now we get some fun with Pax and Electra in their conversations and interactions with Ephraim. And that whole bit on the shuttle, I loved that.
Well, and especially because we get a little thing of seeing Pax is capable in many ways like his dad, but he takes more after his mom, which makes sense because she's around more. And so he's got a sharp mind. He uses his words before his violence usually. But when we look at Electra, whether we're looking at Victra or Severo, both of them are psychos.
And she's
and so is Electra.
It's a fun part of the book. Their escape, the forces of the Republic know that it worked, and they're trying to get back to them, but the shuttle does get shot down.
It doesn't help that Ephraim is kind of like bleeding out.
Yeah. So it ends with us not knowing what happened to them. They went down. Maybe the Syndicate got them back. Maybe they're dead. We don't know.
But you know what? We won't have to wait too long because we've read the next book and we'll get there eventually.
That's right. The final little twist that gets thrown in is, okay, Lyria. She has proven herself as having been a pawn in this whole thing. She was not responsible for what happened in the kidnapping, other than she was a little gullible and naive. She did break a rule. She took that gift and had it on her, which is what allowed all this to happen. But it was a mistake from just an innocent pawn. Unfortunately, Victra doesn't see things so charitably.
No.
doesn't care about the facts sometimes.
No.
And they've hidden Illyria from Victra, who's on a war path about the kidnapping and all. She's
Yeah.
not been part of what Virginia is trying to do to fix things because, she's just, like you said, she's psycho. So where Illyria, right at the end, everything's finally going to be fine. Nope, she gets shot and fade to black. And we can be pretty sure that was Victor's people showing up right at the end to do something to her.
And notably, when we say fade to black, we don't mean the scene fades to black. We mean Lyria fades to black.
Yeah.
We're pretty sure she's not dead yet.
She could be dead. It didn't necessarily
feel
seem
like
like dead.
dead.
It was more like she was shot with like a tranquilizer. But it's like, oh crap! Just when
It could have been
everything's
poisoned,
finally
but we
gonna
don't
go
think
better
so.
for her, it doesn't. And that's pretty much the end of the story.
End of this one, at least.
What were you most entertained by in this story?
Oh goodness, I really liked the Lysander arc. Seeing what Cassie's kind of helped build that too was something really cool that I enjoyed, and partially I love that character, even as I don't like that character. The other thing that I love seeing how it developed was really the relationship between Darrow and Severo,
Okay.
and kind of its fall in this book.
We follow primarily 4 different POVs now through this book, which was a shift, a change. We get a little POV of Virginia once in a while, but that's like an exception. Usually it's either we're following Darrow, Ephraim, Lyria, or Lysander. Those are the 4 primary POVs, right? You
I
look
don't
like
think we get Virginia in this book, but we get a couple chapters here and there of Holiday.
Dewey, Holiday. Okay. For me, I'm not sure that really made the story better than the original trilogy. My favorite parts of this is when I'm following Darrow. And the others are, okay, that's interesting. Okay, can we get back to Darrow? That's kind of how I felt all the way through the story. I appreciated the information and the richness of the story, don't get me wrong, but Darrow's my guy.
That's not an uncommon perspective I've seen out there. I don't agree with that statement. I don't think it made it better, but it is something different. And it, to me, kind of emphasizes the 10-year time jump. The things are different, and that we need to care more in the story about more than just Darrow and his personal crusade. I will say, in this book, the weakest plot line was Lyria's to me. I was least engaged with her character. But like Ephraim, an interesting perspective that is completely different from anything we've seen before, because it's not Republic or Society or even the Moon Lords. It's common people who aren't so common.
Now, I'll turn that a little. Ephraim is the one I least cared about.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I agree. It gives us complexity to this story that you couldn't have just through Darrow's POV. So that was all positive, for sure. A frustration point for me was the mastering of the audiobook. It is not to the same standard as the original trilogy was, because you get some massive shifts in volume between the different POVs. They're not done at the same level of quality. And I listen a lot when I'm driving. And so I'm listening to the Darrow chapter and it's fine. And then it jumps to a Lysander chapter and suddenly it's so much softer. And not just softer, but a big difference between if it's thinking out loud, versus actual dialogue between people. It was too soft, so you turn it up, and then it goes to being too loud, just like that. It not nearly as well designed as most audiobooks. That was a point of frustration for me with this.
I love a dynamic cast and a different characters for different POVs kind of things, different voices. But at the end of the day, this one did suffer a little bit for that. It is a valid criticism. It is a criticism that was tried to be addressed in the next audiobook, in that they changed some of the voice actors and stuff.
It gets a little better.
Got a little bit better. It didn't really improve that much, which is why for the audiobook for Lightbringer, the most recent of the books, they went back to, Tim Gerard Reynolds is just going to do all of it.
Which gets funky now, because some of those people, that's not what you're supposed to sound like.
It's very different for some of it because of that, but is good.
Tim Gerard Reynolds, though, is awesome.
I'm
really enjoying him as an audio narrator.
I liked that we got other people, but unfortunately, because of the mixing issues and some people just being like persnickety about, oh, where's Tim Gerard Reynolds? Why do we have other people? I don't like their accent or consistency with it. We ended up with less than that.
There
So
you go.
it's a
Well,
plus and a minus
this was a worthy continuation of Red Rising Saga, and I
for
was
sure.
glad that I didn't have to wait for the next book.
Yeah,
Moved right into it, and we'll talk about that soon. But this is where we'll stop for today on this particular episode. Iron Gold, I gave it 5 stars as a rating. I thought it was a solid story, definitely entertained me, kept me wanting more. That's what you want out of a book, right?
absolutely.
All right. We'll leave you then for now. If you have thoughts on anything we shared, don't forget to put them down in the comment box and look below that for the show notes where you can find other ways to interact with Zach and I, our social media links, our Discord server. There's an invite there. Come join us and chat. Even an email address that no one ever uses, but you can. It's there. And a Patreon. Feel free to join us on Patreon. We thank those of you who support us every month on Patreon. I'll go ahead and put the graphic right here of our Patreon supporters.
Somewhere.
Thank you. That's all then. We'll talk to you next
Bye.
time.